Hello, 7th graders. In this video, I'm going to finish up with Unit 12 Light. We still have some questions remaining from the end of Unit Questions, pages 160, 161. You already have an assignment to answer questions 2, 3, and 4 on your copybooks. So now I want you to open your copybooks and follow up with me and see if you have done them right. We'll start with question 2. A student drew this diagram to show how a ray of light is reflected by a flat mirror. Make a copy of the diagram. Here's the copy of the diagram. A. On your copy of the diagram, draw the reflected ray, label the mirror, the incident ray, and the reflected ray. So remember that we use a ruler to draw our rays. The reflected ray is drawn at the point where the ray hits the mirror, exactly in the opposite direction. And we show the direction of the ray. Okay, now we need to label them. This is the reflected ray. This is the incident ray. And this is the mirror. Okay, here's A. B. Draw the normal to the surface of the mirror at the point where the ray is reflected. Label the normal. So the normal is drawn at the point where the ray hits the surface of the mirror perpendicular to the mirror. Okay. Normal. This is B. C. Mark the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection. Label them I and R. Remember that the angle of incidence is between the incident ray and the normal. So this 50 degrees is not the angle of incidence, it's the angle between the mirror and the incident ray. The angle of incidence is here, and of course, this should be I for incidence. And label the angle of reflection as well. The angle of reflection is between the reflected ray and the normal. Okay, C is done. D, calculate the value of angle of incidence. How am I going to calculate the value of the angle of incidence? I know the angle between the mirror and the incident ray. I know that the angle between the mirror and the normal is 90. So the angle of incidence, I, equals 90 degrees minus 50 degrees, and it equals 40 degrees. So the value of the angle of incidence is 40 degrees. E, use the law of reflection to determine the value of the angle of reflection. The law of reflection, angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. So I equals R, so 40 degrees equals 40 degrees. So the value of the angles of incidence and reflection are 40 degrees. Question 3. The diagram shows a ray of light passing from air into a glass block. A. What name is given to the bending of light when it travels from one material into another? Remember that we said that when light passes from one material, one transparent material into another, like in this case air and glass, it bends, and we call this refraction. So the name of the bending of light is called refraction. B. Does the ray bend towards the normal or away from the normal when it enters glass from air? Pay attention to the wording. Enters from glass to glass from air. So in other words, from air into glass, it will bend towards the normal. C. State how a ray of light can travel from air into glass without bending. Illustrate your answer with a diagram. Remember, we said that light rays do not bend only in one case. when they enter the other material along the normal. So they have to enter perpendicular to the surface. Illustrate this with a diagram. If we're gonna let the light ray enter from this side, it has to go along the normal. So it hits the surface and it continues without bending. We also have to show the direction. Where's the normal in this case? The normal is exactly on the light ray because they are both perpendicular to the surface. So the answer to C is when the light ray enters along the normal. Draw a diagram to show how a ray of light bends when it travels from glass into air. So it's opposite to this situation. It has to travel from glass into air. We show a light ray leaving glass. Okay, we need to draw a normal at the surface. Now the light ray, because it's leaving glass into air, it will bend away from the normal. So remember, it's not going to continue its in original direction. It will bend away from the normal. So away from the normal. Okay, question 4. When light passes through a prism, it is split up into a spectrum of different colors. A. What name is given to the forming of a spectrum by a prism? Remember, we said that the split of white light into the 7 colors of spectrum is called dispersion. B. Which color of the spectrum is refracted most by a prism? We said that the color that's refracted the most is the violet. And of course, red is refracted the least. Which color lies between yellow and blue in the spectrum of white light? If you remember Roy G. Biv, between yellow and blue lies the color green. D. A student shines a mixture of red and blue light onto a blue toy car. What color will the car appear to have? Explain your answer. So we are shining a mixture of blue and red light on a blue car. We said that objects will reflect colors of light that they have within them. So a blue car, it is a primary color, it has only blue color. The mixture has blue and red. Or we can say it in other words, a magenta light. So the blue car will only reflect its own light, which is blue, and the red color will be absorbed. So the car will appear to be blue. And to explain that, we say that the blue car will absorb the red light and reflect the blue light. Thank you, 7th graders. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for other materials, and we'll stay in touch.